Today's episode is focused on post-COVID digital acceleration with the industry pioneers in telecom, airlines, and real estate sectors. This roundtable will take approximately 45 minutes, leaving 15 minutes for questions. Please write your questions in the Q&A section so we can address them with our panelists. We will give it a couple of minutes and then we'll start shortly. All right, we can start. Hello again, and welcome to our Extraordinary Women in Tech. I'm Oliana Zilbermans, and I'm a VP of Business Development at Avenue Code. And today's episode is very special because we have three amazing, extraordinary leaders representing Canada, different industries, amazing background. Welcome, ladies. So excited to have you today. And we had this amazing pre-discussion. We were just having so much fun and sharing experiences. So I want to introduce you first, and then we can talk about specific experiences that you have in your background. And I want to start with Carrie Joel. Hi, Carrie.
Hi.
So Carrie Joel is a VP of Digital Experience at Rogers Communications, a true visionary and disruptor in the field of technology. Carrie is leading the development of data science and machine learning for digital at Rogers in order to better understand how to serve their customers. Welcome, Carrie.
Thank you.
And our next panelist is Amanda Well. And unfortunately, Farima didn't feel well today, but she nominated a fascinating woman and leader at Terranet. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Amanda Well is a strategic and visionary leader from Terranet who has both IT and business experience. Throughout her career, she has been involved with transformational change, which has shaped her as a leader. In IT, she has breadth of experience in DevOps, cloud, agile, combined with business and change management skills. Welcome, Amanda.
Thanks.
And last but not least, Maclean Williams. Welcome.
Pleasure.
Maclean is Director of Customer Intelligence and E-commerce at Porter Airlines. Maclean has pushed the boundaries of technology and data systems to transform Porter Airlines into a leader in the Canadian digital landscape. With her leadership and dedication to a unique and cheeky brand, landed Porter the CMA Marketer Award of the Year. Welcome again.
Thank you.
And you know what, I want to start with just warming up to this. And you mentioned that Toronto and Canada is experiencing a second lockdown. So I wanted to hear from you, just how has been your experience throughout the lockdown and where you are today with your mind, with your balance, with your workforce, working from home. I just want to ask and see what's happening in Canada. I want to start with Maclean. Maybe you can share what's been going on in your area.
Well, starting with me starts on a bit of a challenging note because I work in the airline space, and that's a very, very impacted space right now. We have chosen to suspend operations during this period of time. So there are a lot of people on furlough. However, on the positive side, we, a core team, including myself, are working hard at building new systems, new algorithms, new capabilities that we can launch and leverage as we restart our business, as things open up again. So it's difficult, but it affords us an opportunity that we're taking advantage of.
That's awesome. Thank you. I love it. Thank you. And Carrie, what about you?
Well, I think I'm like a lot of Canadians, right? So I work at Rogers, which is a big telco in Canada. And we very quickly all went working remote. So I'm like a lot of working moms. I've got an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. And unfortunately, we seem to have an array of animals as well. So we've got a sheepdog, cat, and 2 rabbits. So there's a lot going on in our city house. And so I'm, sitting here praying that we can get through this 45-minute session without, children coming in or anything else. But I think in all seriousness, it's been a tough time. I think that no matter who we are, our norm has changed. We've had to come up with different ways of dealing with the toughness. It's a scary time. It's a hard time, but it's also been an inspirational time. I think for myself and a lot of people, as we watch companies kind of turning on a dime, figuring out how to best serve our customers, coming together as communities. So I think we keep going. It's hard, and I think we try and find joy in doing things like this and meeting 3 fantastic new women. So I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. Thank you so much, Carrie. And as I mentioned, the energy is unprecedented, and seeing how we see everything a positive side and positive way. It's a very special thing for females, I think. Maybe it's biased. And what about you, Amanda?
So, really, it's been pretty hard actually, because I recently moved to Winnipeg for this role. And so, getting excited to go, meet new people, get out, see the festivals that Winnipeg's all famous for, and COVID hits. So I was a new leader trying to really work on a team that had a lot of very, very poor engagement scores. They weren't working well together or with other units, and we were understaffed. And so the challenges around all that really was hard, really, trying to number one, get settled in the city, trying to be that, to really learn to engage my staff, but not having that natural conversation you would have in the office where you can stop, talk, how are you doing? How's the kids? And because I love natural conversation, and I'm actually too much of a talker probably in some cases, but I think that's one of my one of my strengths is the fact I do love engaging with people. I love knowing what inspires them, what they're passionate about, and all that. So not having that natural environment as the work as a as you would in an everyday office has been taken away. So things are a lot more structured now. I'm in a lot more meetings because not only because not only just for work to get the things done, but for my people, for my engagement, because I really believe in that servant leadership style. So for me, it's really about making those one-on-ones really truly you have structure there, but at the same time the last 10 minutes is like, hey, how's it going? How's the kids? How are you doing? Anything I can do to you? Like, how are you feeling with the COVID and all that? So it's really been really working and listening to my staff, and being flexible with their work environment and their situation. I'm lucky my son's 25. He's in university. I don't have that, right? That complication. And so it's just really being thoughtful and being aware of that. So that piece. And then I'm hiring people. I've hired 3 people during COVID. I never met them in person.
Exactly.
All been on Zoom. It's we send them their equipment, they get it, it works, which is fabulous. But it's such a different space.
Yeah.
So I have to say, it's really taught me to be more thoughtful in my interactions and to really take that step back and
Yeah.
reflect on everybody and ensure that there is that balance also.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think that's so important to adjust and still seeing things how you can restructure and be positive, right?
Mhm.
Awesome. And I think the question, I wanted to learn more about your backgrounds because you have all fascinating backgrounds and how you became a leader you are today. But I want to start from the roots and what inspired you, or who inspired you to go in the tech career? And what was, the tipping point, and what keeps you going today? And I want to start with Carrie.
Well, so I think that, it's funny because when I was reflecting on this question, the first thing that popped into my mind was my sister. And, from a very young age, my sister wanted to be a lawyer, and she went to school to be a lawyer, and she is a lawyer, and, she's very successful at lawyering. And, for me, I think my journey into tech was a little bit about finding myself. I actually, I started by going to Queen's University, which is one of the big universities in Canada. And my father had graduated from electrical engineering. And I do remember very much, I think it was like grade 10, maybe 11. And he was like, what are you going to do other than, talk on the phone and party? I was like, and I was like, I'm going to go into engineering. He's like, I'm not sure you're going to get in with your grades. I was like, oh, of course I will. And so, then I really worked really hard, and I did. But I think it was about keeping my options open. It was about having not sure what I wanted to do, but thinking that with an engineering degree, I could do a lot of things. And it wasn't really until my first job that I fell in love with tech. In my first job, it was like, oh my gosh, it's creative. Coding is actually a really interesting and creative. I mean, you take ones and zeros and you build things and interactions. And I ended up in the banking sector. And what I really found exciting about that was, I thought of banking as like, I don't know, white guys in like dark suits. And then all of a sudden there was like this movement to make banking interactive and to make it accessible and to make it comfortable. And, and all of a sudden we're building apps for people. And I really loved the transformation aspect of that. We got to play with new tech. And so I think, my journey was sort of a little bit, windy, but I ended up in a space that is very much suited to me. And that transformation, I think, is something that's sort of core in me. And I think inspiration is what keeps you going. I mean, these are tough jobs. I think anyone in technology works a lot of hours. There's tight deadlines, there's a lot of pressure. And so I think for myself, I try and find inspiration through my kids and their kind of fun use of technology. But I also think that as women, it's really, really important to find that inspiration for our souls. And, I sometimes think about it like, two things. One is find your jam, whatever it is. Is it a song that brings you back? Is it, painting, even though you're not very good at it? Or maybe it's reading, or it's whatever it is that just makes your heart sing. And then the other thing that I find just so inspiring is knowing the next generation's anthems. Every generation, there's a song, there are words that they just, it resonates deep within them. And I think what I've really enjoyed as I've matured in my career is watching the next generation come up and making those connections and continuing to sort of find new and fun experiences, because that's what digital is about. Digital is about, creating those interactions and those moments of truth with someone that you never see, which is really kind of fun and interesting.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. I cannot comment on any of this. This is like perfection. I'm thinking about my song, but I cannot come up with
yeah, well, we should have had walk-on songs, right? We all had like walk-on songs, and what's our jam?
Exactly. Thank you. And Amanda, what about you?
What inspires me? And so growing up, I was always really good at math and science and stuff like that. And my brother had a Commodore 64 that I would sneak and work on and play with as a child. But it didn't really actually, I'm like, oh, it's kind of interesting. But I thought for sure it was going to be healthcare. That's what I thought I was going to be in. And I went down a path of all that. And I was a respiratory therapist for a while. And during that process, I realized I really don't like a lot of the phlegm and all that. So I was just like not really working well for me at all. And so at that point, I was living in Seattle and just kind of actually enjoying my life, working as a manager in a restaurant, going out with great scenes of music and all that. But then, as you're getting older, oh, I need to do something. And then we had our child. And so there I was, a manager of a restaurant, not happy there. I have a degree in biology, and what's that getting me? So I went to the university, well, the college in Seattle, and they're having a IT night, and so I thought, oh, I'll check it out. I'm smart, I can do it. That would be the problem. And so, oh, sounds really interesting. You're coding and then you're developing things that people are going to use. Fascinating. It's like applied mathematics. So, yeah, I enrolled and I did very well. And yeah, and so part of that was then, you graduate, you work. I worked in insurance. So I was a developer and systems analyst and did some work as an architect, insurance. And so there, same thing. First was just these huge monolithic mainframe systems. You're coding in this black screen with green, text. Kind of boring, but at the same time serving a purpose, right? And then basically then moving into the management space, really I saw a gap between business and IT. They were always kind of going this way, never really coming together. And yeah, so I was very lucky in some of the roles that I've had. I've had really good yeah, I had one lady named Joanne Cullum. She was my director of information management at 3S Health. I was a developer and I had management experience, and I really wanted this position as manager of information management. So excited. I wanted it. And she took a chance on me and really, she was a fabulous mentor, coach, and everything. She really taught me the ropes and really got me into not just being IT, but how can really be business architecture and really bringing that together. And then when moving into the healthcare space, it really inspires me. Being in IT really then inspired me because not only am I just making things like video games or an office product for, say, a registry system. We're actually creating, we're managing, running systems that people are dependent on.
Yeah. No, thank you.
And that in itself was just truly passionate and kept me going and really led me into moving into that digital world, DevOps, and really how do you, not necessarily the technology, because that's always interesting and always changing, but it's about the team and what do you need to do to ensure that your team is always, well educated, on target, meeting those, being inspired themselves. And so for me, I think it's just, I get inspiration from inspiring others to really work their best and just work together. It's that coach in me because I used to coach also. And I think that's what brings a lot of it. I love bringing key people together.
Yeah. Awesome.
And working
Thank you
together.
so much. No, I'm hearing so many things. That first of all, you're switching the career, having a son, and also changing completely and going to completely different industry at the, that different type, age that you were probably leap of faith, but also that inspiration. Thank you. That's great. And Maclean, what about you? I know we're getting out of time. Wow.
Right. I'll speak quickly. Essentially, ever since I was a kid, I had a real interest in technology and science. I remember somebody gave me a doll when I was about 4, and I just ripped the back open to understand the voice technology. And I wanted the electric race car set and the science experiment set. I was the only girl in my high school to do electronics and machine shop and auto mechanics. I was the only one. I got heavily teased for that. But when I hit high school, the guidance advice for university I got was, no, that's not for you. That's not for girls. But it was so core to who I was. I ended up going into media and circling around in media to everything technology, for a while, radio, but as soon as online came, then I was working in, websites, building websites, and then got into the data side of it, got into, now into machine learning, et cetera. So I feel fortunate because also while I was growing up, my mother was doing an undergrad, a master's, a doctorate in psychology. So as I was growing up, I was very aware of human psychology, and I had this propensity towards technology. And now with so much that's happening right now, it's the marriage of data, technology, and an understanding of human beings and where those intersect. And I feel lucky to be working in this perfect time period for myself where it all comes together.
No, this is beautiful. Thank you so much. I think it's, like you said, you were stopped with somebody saying like, it's not for you. And you went around and came back to what you love, which
Yes.
is passion. Thank you. And Carrie, question for you. In our preparation call, you said very interesting phrase, culture eats strategy for breakfast. How do you lead and cultivate engineering culture at Rogers pre and post COVID? And what are the key measures to your success?
So, I mean, I love that quote also. I mean, I think it just resonates. I think that, to understand the quote and a little bit engineering culture, you do have to understand the difference between strategy and culture. So strategy to me is the what, right? It's, how do I deliver a incredible frictionless experience for my customer? It's how do I use AI so I'm giving them a product and service before they even know they need it, right? That's the what. But the culture is the how. The culture is about how do I create an environment for the people that work at Rogers that can create those incredible experiences for our customers. And when we look at engineering culture, I work for Elisa Durocher, who's the Chief Digital Officer. I'm very fortunate to have an incredible woman leader. And we really looked at that we wanted to change kind of how we do the work. And so for many tech people, you're familiar with cloud and cloud native, agile and product centric. So that's part of the journey, of course. But the other part of the journey is creating that environment where you're going from a development, which was traditional, right, on like legacy systems, moving into cloud. We adopted SRE. But at the end of the day, it's about engaging your employees. It's about people being happy with what they're doing. And one of the things that we talked a little bit about was training. And I think there's a lot of great programs for people coming out of universities, first-time jobs. But I think the other side of it is for people who maybe have been at the organization for 10 or 12 years, who are looking for a new challenge, you want to make sure that your engineering culture embodies and embraces the great technical background that they have, their understanding of the systems and the business, and give them a new outlet. And I find that especially for women, the kids grow up to a certain point, you get a little tired with what you're doing, and the engineering culture, if done properly, has that training, has that opportunity of sort of the next interesting thing. And I think it can inspire and bring people together. So when I look at metrics that determine successful engineering culture, of course we have, mean response times, how long incident management times and all that. But I think the number one metric is about employee engagement. Are your employees engaged? Do they want to work? Is the work fulfilling? Are your processes slowing them down or enabling them? And so that's really the number one thing that we look at is what is our employee engagement, We take it very seriously, and there's always opportunities to improve it.
This is great. Thank you so much. It gives you the whole spectrum from the person to technology, but actually getting into core and keeping that in mind, that the human element of passionate engagement, making sure that they are there and they're doing what they love so they can continue going and growing. That's wonderful. Thank you. And I'm going to skip you questions because I want to get to the core as well. Maclean, I have a question for you. You came to Porter Airlines to transform traditional company and take it through full digital transformation. Please share what was the key to the successful transformation and how the crisis accelerated a pause. I think you touched on that already, some of the initiatives.
It was interesting. I came to the company 8 years ago now, and at the time it was very traditional. The owners were very old school airline guys who knew their business inside and out, but weren't very aware of digital. They were kind of newspaper guys, and there was a lot of opportunity there to improve the e-commerce experience. And that was my first task when I got there, was to work on that, improve the booking flow, improve the experience. And then I launched the entire digital advertising strategy and process. It didn't exist, essentially. Now, there's a challenge when you're dealing with people who don't necessarily understand this space and who have a habit of just making decisions because, decisions must be made, and you have to influence. And as a woman coming into a very male-dominated industry, that was also a challenge because I'd be the only woman around. So what I learned quickly to do was to prove with hard numbers, with revenue, that what I was proposing would work. So I break it up into smaller initiatives, go ahead to run one, show the numbers, extrapolate. If we do this, we're going to get this many million out of that. And I really, I earned trust, I earned credibility in this way because really, it's all about the numbers. And so it took some time, but now I'm at a point where, I'm valued, my perspective's valued, and I'm known as the person who's always pushing the envelope, always, bringing forward the next thing. Okay, we have to embrace machine learning. We have to do that, And so, I've come to a point of being very integrated into the entire decision-making process of the organization instead of being this little voice out in the darkness calling for change. And that's terrific. And as I said, now that we have a bit of downtime, it's unfortunate, but it is creating time for more transformation, greater and more rapid transformation within the organization. And it's quite exciting, even though things are difficult, at least that is quite exciting at the moment.
No, this is great. I've heard that you adapted first to prove your point, because sometimes it's hard, right? When you need to really make it out there to make sure that your voice is equal and you can be heard. So adoption, proving with data, breaking it down, but then as soon as you have that, you can actually explore and be heard and be more creative. Once you have that position. That's amazing. Thank you. And Amanda, question for you and question for all of you about future of tech. And, first time we have Canada representation, which is fantastic. So I would love to hear, what are the main tech trends that you're seeing in the Canadian market that got accelerated with pandemic? It could be acceleration specific industry or technology, innovation in general. So I want to start with Amanda.
All right. So I think for us, like in our space, and when it comes to the registries and land titles and that, it's really around digitization and around data analytics. Digitization is just really was paramount when it comes to, not because let me back up here. So for digitization, when it came to, especially for us here in Manitoba, we were very paper-based, and we were not accepting a lot of land titles, documents, and that electronically. We would make people come in to the office and, they bring their documents in. We would scan, keep them. We keep the originals sometimes. There's a bunch of that. But now, because of the COVID, everything shut down. But the business still needs to continue. People still need to be able to register their land titles. They still need to be able to do the transfers and all that. So we had a project that we basically all came together, and it was very heavy lifting. But by doing so, then we ended up being able to bring in accept digital land titles and a couple other forms, which really eliminated the need for people to have to come into the office physically during this COVID time. And as such, since it was so successful, we're now working towards the next phase to accept more, electronic forms and that, and really create more of that synergy, not just taking in. We want to be able to now, push out, really start to create that synergy between us and our external clients. And so one thing about this, it's really actually pushed it to the forefront, because for a long time in IT, we're like, we need to do this. No, we're fine. We need to do this. We don't know, we're okay with the way we're working. Oh my gosh, we have to do it.
Yeah.
So it did actually help us in that space.
Thank you. I'm hearing also the overall digitalization of different in different industries, acceleration, where IT was in the background, and now they were frontlining, and everybody just jumped over to accelerate some of the programs. And we see it as a consulting company everywhere. But thank you. This is great, and signing and the contactless opportunity where it accelerates the business, which is great.
Exactly. Digital signatures are next.
Right. And Carrie, what about you?
I think, going a little geeky technical, if, just cause why not? I think that headless architecture is sort of a trend that I think more and more people are talking about. I think that, one of the advantages for those who aren't familiar with it, it's the platforms are kind of constructed in a way that allows you to call them sort of independently. And I think of it as sort of Lego blocks that can go on top of each other in different ways. And so I think that the reason the headless is getting so popular is because, especially in the commerce space, which, I think I share, I'm also accountable for the digital commerce at Rogers. I think what we're finding is where we can really serve our customers the best is when we can sort of layer on capabilities. So you want to be able to have that ability to give the great offer to the customer. You want to be able to give also a really frictionless commerce experience. So you might be layering on the cart, you layer on, machine learning to make sure you've got the right plan for that customer. So I think I'm sort of spending a lot of time looking at that, and that kind of ties into event-based architectures. So that's trigger-based. So, and I see Maclean's just laughing because she's like, oh yeah, because I'm sure at Porter you guys use the same. So, or want to, one of the two.
Well, that's good. That brings me to Maclean, actually. Maclean, what do you think?
In terms of the way people work, I see a rise in the use of cloud technologies just for resilience, scalability. Some organizations had not fully transitioned, and they really have. I think because of so much online work, 5G will definitely be enormous, especially as we all likely to continue to work from a distance. I think there's a change in attitude among consumers. I think that some people are making less right now. They've been impacted. And the dollars that they do spend, they want a lot of choice around it. They want a lot of flexibility. They want to get their money back if they need to. They want to be offered the right thing that suits them and their needs and not oversold or upsold too much. They want it to be relatable and, practical for them. And I think that a lot of the options for that haven't been built into systems, e-commerce systems, or customer messaging systems, and we're going to have to build those in. Yes, we want flexibility to cancel and rebook, or we want to be able to get a scaled down version of something because our dollars mean so much. And we're going to see a lot of push for technology to catch up to people's desire for control.
No, that's great. Thank you. And I also see in airline business, all of the things that we hoped for as a customer, like coming to life, clean, everything clean and sanitized, and no change fees. And there's so much synergy because there's less friction between airlines, connection between airlines. So I personally see a big jump there too.
If we talk technology, we can talk big technology. We can talk airplanes. I can see smaller airplanes being more popular because people will feel they're exposed to fewer people and fewer, a lower percentage chance of catching COVID. And because there may be more and more of these virus situations, it might become a norm to have smaller airplanes. And that's a big technology change.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to shift to talk about women in technology. And I know you're all passionate about it. That's why we're here today, to embrace young women, embrace women in tech, embracing leaders. So I have a question for each one of you. And Carrie, I think I want to start with you. You mentioned the statistics that around 50% of women in their 40s and 50s tend to leave the IT industry. Why do you think that is? And what can we do to change this trend?
Yeah, so it was funny because that was a statistic that I kind of held in my head a little bit from some work that I did years ago. And myself and a colleague were like desperately looking because like fact checking, right? Like I was like, oh my God, the facts have to be right. So I'm not sure that the number's right, but I do know that women leaving the industry is something of concern. And I think that I think that for a lot of organizations, it's a talent war out there, right? And so what's kind of crazy is on one hand, you've got people who feel disengaged and are maybe it's difficult to be part of kind of the new cloud or whatever the new tech is, right? And so I think I know for myself, I can really relate. I had the kids were young and I could, sort of barely manage keeping a house, keeping a job. I wasn't super focused on keeping up with technology. And they got to an age and I got to an age where I really felt like I didn't know a lot of the terms that people were using. I wasn't up to speed. And so I think that for whether it's for women or people in general, I think that in an engineering culture that's kind of done properly, you have to have training, you have to have clear accountabilities, and you have to have movement of staff to be able to try new things, to be able to sort of say, okay, I've got this skill set, how do I build upon it? I know at Rogers, we do a ton of work. We have a whole program called Tech Hub. And what we do is we actually take, here's the new way of working, DevOps, CI/CD, SRE, kind of all that good stuff. But we take programs and groups of people, we bring them through it. And I think that for women, it's really the first and the hardest part is acknowledging that you want to do something different. And that, it's kind of scary, right? Especially if you're older, you might look at it and be, oh, well, a younger person, but you've got to state, hey, I want to do this. And then I think most organizations have programs and opportunities where, whether it be training and certification, and if not, I mean, this is the beautiful thing about the online world, right? You can certainly get it. So I think that as leaders, it is our, we have to make sure that the programs are there to keep people up to date. But as individuals, I think there's an accountability to kind of say, put my hand up and go, that's what I want.
Yeah. No, this is great. I love that because there's a tendency for people to say, okay, I'm going to stay or I'm going to switch because it's another challenge. And am I ready for this? Am I supported as well? So this is great. And Amanda, going to the young generation of women and diversity, I know you're very passionate about adding more women into the tech force. What are the ways you think we can attract more women to the tech industry? And how can we influence the diversity movement in tech in general?
Thanks for that question, actually. I really think it's starts really it's like right as children, really, and in our education system. We need to really, it needs to focus not on the girls and the boys, or and that it needs to really focus on the learning and the and the individual, and getting there. Definitely one thing I noticed going in high school, was the only girl, the same thing, in all the traditional male classes, and I was excited by that. And I was lucky where I had really good teachers and mentors saying, that's great, keep going, keep going. But unfortunately, I don't think we do that a lot in general. And so I think just from my viewpoint, I think we need to help each other. I think when we see women struggle, with especially in the IT, and they're trying to get their feet wet and trying to move forward, be there, reach out. That will definitely help the growth and having them stay within the industry too, because I find, um, unfortunately, we tend to not support each other in IT. I think a lot of times we're fighting each other almost to get to that level, because it's hard to find leadership roles in that space, number one. And being a woman in that role, it's hard because we're not necessarily seen as those visionary strategic leaders. And so what I like to do, we work with co-op students. And so one of the things is going to the universities, working, attending those engineering students, giving them, this is what we do here, this is our technology, and getting them excited, and, talking to them. And especially when they're talking, well, isn't that really math heavy? It is, but it's not just about math. And, getting them excited, and just really doing that. And there's also, you have groups, right? So there's those learning camps and camps, and have those for girls. But why not push it out there? I think we need to really, in order to get more women in technology and more women in leadership itself, we just really need to expose women to it, and we need to, as girls, and really keep that moving forward. I think that's really the goal and how we'll get there.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Amanda. We only have a few minutes, and I wanted to maybe do the panel questions, and then we have some questions coming in from the audience. So, Maclean, I wanted to ask one question to one panelist, and then let's just take 1 minute to answer, and then we'll go to Q&As for the panel. Okay, so pick one and ask the question.
Okay, Carrie, sorry to pick on you, but how do you think we increase diversity in the technology space in order to influence a richer technology experience for society? So not only women, but people of all ages, and I mean all ages.
Yeah.
And also people of different cultural backgrounds. How do you think we get these voices, these influences, these brains involved in creating technology that, has a rich experience?
I mean, I think it's got to be structured, and it's got to be supported at all levels of leadership. So there's a lot of initiatives that we do at Rogers, but a couple of them, so one of them is there's the BPTN, and I'm going to not get the acronym right, but basically it's Black North Initiative. And what they do is they put for Black, I guess, candidates who are incredibly qualified, they connect them with people looking for, qualified in jobs. And I think that, what we need to do is we need to push for those connections. There are a lot of organizations that focus on diversity. We got to bring those into the enterprises. We've got to leverage those networks so that our companies reflect what Canada looks like. And that goes to age, it goes to color, it goes to sex, but it just, in a lot of cases, when you look at IT, it isn't. And so I think it has to be structured, and it has to be supported at the top levels of the organization.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
And Carrie, would you like to ask a question?
Well, I was going to ask Maclean, but I feel like that's you know, I think one thing that I will ask is Maclean, you've been able to succeed in a male-dominated, a little bit, world. What are a couple keys of success that you would, and knowledge that you would impart?
I would say that I'm fortunate to be right-brained and left-brained. When I took aptitude tests, I was clustered at the far ends of science and analytical thinking and arts and verbal ability. And so I have an ability to translate technology into lay speech for people who are not technologists. And I found that very useful for this type of industry that changes slowly, if you like. So I was really able to be a good translator, and that has taken me a long way.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. I have a question for Amanda. Amanda, what advice, in 3 words, that's something like very short, but when you actually think about it, it makes them think through and fight through, take risks to become the leader that they want to be in the tech industry, because it's today we're talking about the tech industry. So what would that be?
Really have confidence in yourself, trust your gut, and don't apologize when you're asking for clarifying questions. Just ask them. Really, that's it. And have faith. Yeah.
I love don't apologize, right? I love it. Don't apologize. I feel like that's it.
Don't ever apologize.
Don't apologize. That's brilliant. I love it, Amanda.
Yeah. So that's really what all I can say is really, from working with men, I don't want to be a man. I really like being a woman. I love my traits, but yeah, have confidence, like trust your gut, don't apologize for asking questions.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. We have so many questions coming in from our YouTube live channel. So I will start with this. Who is the biggest inspiration for you today and why? Who wants to take that?
I will. Fariba. So Fariba was supposed to be here today. And unfortunately she couldn't, so she did choose me, but she is an inspiration. She is a true visionary leader who has compassion and empathy. And to be able to see someone a woman who's been able to keep all that and still have that vision and the forthrightness to lead a tech company and just really change our culture, that is an inspiration. And I'm very, very happy to be learning from her.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. We have a question from our talent acquisition team, because we hire a lot of talented developers. And Lace asked, I'd love to know what you girls think about the selection processes to include more women in tech. Do you believe that we need to change our metrics to find more talented women in the workforce?
So I don't know if I can take a crack at that one. So I think absolutely. I think that one thing everyone needs to know is applying for a job is about algorithms now, right? And so it's really about creating your resume with keywords than it is about any experience you have. And the problem with that is, I think, and not to generalize women, but I think sometimes it's hard to kind of talk about our achievements in a way that is defined and keyword searchable. And so I think that, one thing I would say is, as much as algorithms are great and online is fantastic, I think more and more we need to do the networking. And I don't think that needs to be in person, but I think it needs to be get out there. There's amazing forums where you can meet people. And I think that the more it's kind of all the other sides that you don't see in a resume, that you see the potential of people. And so I think that we need to look beyond just the recruiting process, which is about, keyword matches, because that narrows the field so much and we lose such opportunity, especially for women.
I love it. Thank you so much. I love it. We have a question from Sophie. What would be one advice that you give for a woman going into her first tech job? I think maybe Maclean can take it because Amanda touched on some advice, but maybe Maclean, if you can share one advice.
I would advise young women never to self-deprecate. Not just don't apologize, don't self-deprecate. I found a lot of young women coming into early career positions in general, but technology in particular is, oh, I don't know enough. I may mess this up. I'm not sure. And men don't do that.
Nope.
And so men are more likely to be considered as competent because they don't shoot themselves in the foot in front of management. So that's my piece of advice.
No, this is great. I think that's what stands us apart, right? We go with our guts, as you said, but also there is this risk taking and more about, I'm just gonna go for it anyway without thinking about what they're gonna think about it. This is great. Thank you. We have another question. In your opinion, which is the biggest challenge to keep employees engaged in times like we're living today?
I will happy to answer that one. I think that a lot of people feel insecure and they do feel isolated. Some people love working from home. Some really don't. They miss the interaction. And in industries like mine, there's a lot of insecurity. And so I would say it's trying to keep people's spirits up. And in order to do that, try to keep them focused on something exciting, building something, creating something in this difficult time, because there's hope in creation.
I love it. Thank you so much. We have few more questions. Which technologies do you consider essential to accelerate digitalization?
I can take that one. So I think that in commerce, it's the two things are the commerce platforms, and there's many out there, and content. I mean, I think that people forget at the end of the day, when you're looking at interaction, it really is visual. The creative can never be undersold. Whether it's a marketing campaign, of course, having the right, what group are you going to, what is your segmentation, all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, it's really the creative is what a human eye just gets caught to it, right? So I think you just can never, a good CMS, people, a good CMS.
I love it. Thank you. One more question. How can we achieve both fast and human-centered digitalization?
That's
a crack at that one.
Go ahead, Amanda.
I would say it's around your team and it's around the dynamics and around your engagement as a company and the alignment. Hopefully you have to have that dyad approach between IT and business, and you're working together. That's the only way you're going to be able to do that.
I think there is a role for a professional who bridges those things.
Mm-hmm.
And some companies have them. People who have studied human and technology interaction very closely. They're not programmers. Their role is to bring those teams together and have them understand each other. And that can be very powerful.
Yeah, and I think design thinking is one area of expertise
Yes.
that really brings those things together, and is, Maclean and to Amanda's point, very powerful. And I think organizations, if it's not a term that you're familiar with, take a look at it, because I think it's pretty neat and kind of mind blowing a little bit.
It is.
Love it. And I have the final question that probably will be great to wrap this up. What do you believe will be a future for women in the tech industry, and why?
I think we're going to see a turn back to empathy.
Yeah.
I think that there's been a focus a bit away from that. And I think that with COVID and with the uncertainty, isolation, I think that people are realizing that the human quality of empathy, and it's something that technology can provide. it's a reach out, it's, to our customers, to, to each other. And I think that you're going to see empathy start playing a bigger role in technology and impacting the way we design and think about our businesses.
All right. Well, I know we have actually a few more minutes, so I have a personal question to ask you, because I think we all women, we have to juggle so many different things, as we have family, we have leadership, we are doing the team building with folks, we are managing sometimes kids and others. So I want to ask you, how do you stay happy? What will make you be more balanced? Because I hear a lot of questions that we are overwhelmed, we're tired, that at some point we're hitting a plateau. So how do you keep that momentum, and what are the advice you can give to everybody?
For myself, I really, it's a give and take, there's ebb and flow, but ultimately every morning I spend a half hour of my morning, and I'm lucky because I don't have young children, but I really sit quietly and I look outside my window and I watch my little rabbits in my yard kind of deal. And I'm thankful, and I try to really quiet my mind because my mind is extremely busy and always going. So I try to make sure I start my day like that. And then at the end of the day, same thing. I really stop and I quiet my mind, and I'm thankful. I find things I'm thankful for. And that works for me though.
I love it.
I mean, I think one thing for me is permission to pause. And I think it's our lives are busy. And I think we almost feel like if we take a few minutes, to what Amanda said, a half an hour, it's almost like we're wasting time or we're not achieving. And I think that you've got to, as you practice mindfulness, you've also give your permission to pause, take a walk, take a break. It's okay to do nothing. Just, it's okay. You're still the goddess that you are. You can just pause.
Beautiful. I love it so much. Maclean, what about you?
For me, it's a combination of getting my body working, then I get out of my brain, get out there and exercise. And in this time, living in integrity, treating the people I work with empathy. And, people at every level are having a challenge, and checking in with people, and those who unfortunately, have gone on furlough, helping them through the transition and helping them be prepared to come back, and just, treating them as human beings. Yeah. Very important, valuable human beings in this process.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, ladies. I'm so inspired, and this was great. I love Canada, and hopefully we'll come from lockdown very soon, and I can see you in person. And thank you, everybody who joined, and have a great rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me.
So